Good evening, everybody. It is Friday, and so we are going to be doing Crusader Kings 2 tonight. This is actually the first stream since we did the second Twitch meetup at EXP Bar down in Vancouver. So for anybody who is watching as a result of that very fun evening, welcome. Normally Monday would be a day where I will play something not Crusader Kings 2, the new format being that Fridays will be Crusader Kings 2 sort of dedicated days, whereas the other days, which is currently just Monday, would be dedicated to something. I've been playing a lot of Shadowrun Dragonfall, but I'd like to add things like the Darkest Dungeon to that as soon as I can. But of course we were out at the gathering. It was a lot of fun, and we did host it through EXP's Twitch channel, so I'm sure some of you got to see what was going on there. But something tells me that gatherings like that are a little bit more fun in person rather than on video. Some people mentioned a couple of problems, but I didn't actually experience anything myself, So far as the stream goes, though, I do realize this means that it's been 2 Crusader Kings 2 days in a row. I apologize. I will do my best to get back to a regular cast. I am almost certain that next Monday is off the books again. The reason for that is I would like to attend an Extra Life meeting if I can, and it is going to be the week of finals for me. So to give you a quick idea in terms of what the expectations are as far as my own activities for next week. On the 21st, I need to submit my thesis. The 24th will be its defense, which is the last thing that I do at my current university as an undergrad. On the Wednesday, I'll have my econometrics exam, which I really need to be on top of. I'm feeling moderately confident about my ability to handle the material, but it is something that I definitely need to put the time into studying. I was debating on canceling tonight's stream so I could do that studying, but that would mean that there'd be several days, or a couple of weeks really. Well, maybe not. I guess that works out to be one and a half weeks, where there wouldn't be content, and I wasn't really comfortable sort of having such an extended absence, on such short notice. So I am going to stream tonight, but with that in mind, between the Extra Life meeting and then whatever studying I need to do for the test on Wednesday, it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to do another stream. So with the Wednesday exam done, the next one would... Wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, actually. Let me just bring up my calendar. Oh, wow, it's Tuesday, so I really need to get on top of that. I'm definitely not going to be able to do a stream on Monday, then. So, Tuesday, I'm going to be having my econometrics exam. Then on the Thursday, I'm going to be having my macroeconomics exam, again, something I should be able to handle as long as I put enough time into studying. And then finally, the day after is my thesis defense, which is a Friday, so I'm definitely going to be able to stream then. I will be done with school at that point. And then, basically from that point, I'm free until, assuming I might maintain grades, until I start grad school in the fall. As far as what I'm going to be doing during the summer, personally I would like to do some kind of work, but I haven't made any kind of arrangements for that. So unless a really great opportunity comes up for me, I'm probably not going to be working this summer. Which means, and I also committed to myself not to do a ton of econ stuff, because it's been 4 years nonstop, including the summer sessions of an undergrad, and I need to make sure that, like, if I go in and grad school basically just winds up being this 5th year of even more work, I'm going to get discouraged before I begin, and that's not, like, I need to be on top of my game for grad school. I've already been feeling like my quality's been slipping a little bit in this last term. So with that in mind, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff that I consider more fun, which includes Twitch streaming. I also have an intention I'm definitely going to be learning Unity much more thoroughly over the course of the summer. I'd like to, again, the full idea would be to make a game. But whether or not that becomes a reality, I suppose, is a question in terms of how quickly I can pick up Unity. But I am sort of interested in seeing whether or not I would absolutely hack Hackadeck. Thanks for stopping by. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure whether or not that's something I would be able to stream for myself or not. I definitely think there's a value in streaming the development of a game, but I think the development of a game would also be the best way for me to learn Unity itself. Which means, a Twitch cat that wouldn't mean a lot of commentary because I'm going to be reading manuals and trying to do things in the program. I'll be making a lot of mistakes and going back and just staring at different monitors. It doesn't I think I would need to get a little bit more confident with the tool set before I would consider broadcasting game development. But with that in mind, that's something that I am thinking of doing over the summer. And again, actually, I lied a little bit when I said I don't have any work plans over the summer, or didn't have any work plans over the summer. There was an outside chance that I'd get an internship at the Bank of Canada. So for the United States equivalent, for anybody who's listening, that would be Canada's version of the Federal Reserve. Now, the drawback was that this was something that came out of a meeting with the local representative for that institution at my university, and she said that, I sort of mentioned roughly what my intentions were as far as school, and that I thought in retrospect it would have been good to apply for a summer internship, but I never did it. So she mentioned, actually after the fact, she got somebody who had organized this event that we'd met at. She actually got them to give her my email, and she said that I could apply. The catch is that because they'd already begun the hiring process, it would only be if they didn't find a suitable candidate in the first round. And I mean, the Bank of Canada, I'm assuming the Federal Reserve is a prestigious institution in the States. I'm sure not everybody's a Ron Paul supporter, but it's the same deal in Canada, right? If you are working there, it's usually because you have some very impressive credentials. So sure enough, they found somebody in the first round. So with that in mind, that was the only real thing I had planned for work. So the rest of it'll be probably streaming, like I said, unless there's a big opportunity that comes up. But I suppose I need to survive finals week, especially finding out that econometrics exam is one day earlier than I thought it was going to be. So I guess that's the really crappy recap. It'd be more prestigious in your eyes anyway if they gave me yeah, agree. Well, I guess technically as a taxpayer, I believe the Federal Reserve still makes a profit, and those the profits from the Federal Reserve go back into the federal coffers. So I suppose indirectly you're getting a cut through the fact that your taxes are not as high as they would be, but probably not best to bring that up, seeing as we're not too far off of April the 15th. Anyways, let's start playing some games. I'm talking a little bit too much. All right. So when we had last left this game, we had a revolution breakout in Wales, specifically Gwynedd. Not too worried about it. It's 4,000 troops. I've already got a stack of 6,000 here, which I'll combine, but I always like to deal with these things through a bit of overkill. As far as our overall European strategy, again, it would be best if we could break up this holding of the Teutonic Orders. We've been pretty much stopped in Spain, specifically because of this growing empire. Not real empire, but you never actually had to pay taxes. You've always gotten a refund. Oh, fantastic! Get a fifth of what you paid during the... Yeah. Actually, I suppose. I mean, you still wind up paying taxes. Just I guess you technically overpaid over the course of the year. But yeah, I know the feeling, especially when I worked in film, which was probably the largest amount I was making as far as an annual income. I was still getting tax returns just basically because I sort of made sure I was overtaxed, and it was just sort of an indirect way of me saving. Now, in retrospect, because I'm a little bit more sophisticated as far as investing and as far as just general finance is concerned, the one thing that I would have done differently is to just figure out exactly how much I was overpaying each paycheck, which in the case of film was once a week. They're just giving you change. Yeah, sorry it took so much during the year. Here's some back, kiddo. Yeah, exactly. So I did the same thing as well. The only thing I would do differently for myself is that I would want to calculate exactly how much of each paycheck, which in the case of the film, like I was literally working every day in film. So the calculation I should have done was basically just to take what my refunds were divided by the number of weeks in the year and have that set aside, automatically taken out, and put it even in some kind of a savings account. The difference, of course, is that I get the advantage of a year's worth of interest sort of accumulating while I'm doing that savings plan. And rather than, waiting until the end of the year, then I get this refund from the government. And, it's nice to get that money, but technically I could have been putting that money to work, even in a small way. Now, the drawback with that, of course, is that I am definitely putting a lot of trust in myself that I'm not gonna dip into that savings, that I'm not gonna spend the whole amount of the paycheck, which normally is the case for me. But I don't know. I definitely prefer that to being in a situation where I wind up paying, especially because I haven't done my taxes in a while. So I have a feeling that if I continue that trend, and there's going to be 1 year where I'm owing, and then I have to pay quite a bit as far as interest is concerned for not filing on time, which is bad. Like that's a terrible thing for me to say. Unfortunately, I kind of suspect this would be the case for me. Yeah, well, I mean, it's in the ideal case, but I guess the big thing that I appreciate, like whenever I talk to friends about financial matters and stuff like that, I always try to differentiate between, on paper, this is what I think the ideal strategy would be, and what the reality of the situation is. So, for instance, if I don't actually think I'm going to... if I don't think I'm going to be quite regular in terms of setting that money aside, then what I wind up doing is not saving enough. And all of a sudden I'm spending money which I had originally intended to save. The nice thing is, at least as far as my bank is concerned, and I'm pretty sure that this is something most banks would be willing to do, is that you can actually automatically, like you can set up for a savings account, an RRSP, which is our equivalent of, it's not a 401k, what do they call it? IRA, I think, is the US equivalent. But yeah, basically, there's a number of financial products that we have which will automatically do those withdrawals for you. So, personally for me, just because, again, I want to make sure that, like, out of sight, out of mind, I would want to make sure that I had something like that set up, just to make sure that I didn't wind up blowing. It would be so easy for me to take money like that and blow it on a new gaming machine. All right, so we got a couple of factions on here. I'm not so much worried about it. I don't really pay that much attention to things like the intrigue and the factions windows while they've got a revolution going on, but we will do the role-playing event. A large merchant caravan from distant lands arrived at the gates of your stronghold. Their leader, a jovial man of massive girth, pleads with you in a strange accent to grant them shelter from the elements for the night. Very well, let them in. Just going to wait till the stack is built, which it is. As evening falls, the fat merchant sits by the fire and regales you with the rest of the court with stories of his travels. His appetite seems insatiable, but as you do not wish to prove a poor host, you order the servants to bring a second serving. Tell us more about the mythical realm of Hindustan. Right, so I'm just going to take 20,000 troops to show the rebels exactly what we think of them. Dawn breaks and the caravan prepares to move on. The merchant insists on leaving you a gift as thanks for your great hospitality. He shouts a terse command in a foreign language, and a young man comes forward. This eunuch will serve you well, the merchant says. His loyalty to you, his new master, shall be beyond reproach. That is very kind. I accept your gifts. Feel a little bad that I don't have a lot of original stuff to say about the game. Once I kind of get past some of these menus, I will talk a little bit about what the next couple of generations will look like and see how well we can actually pull it off. My Emperor, word has reached me that your court chaplain has accused me of heresy. I implore you, as a devout Catholic to another devout Catholic, believe me when I tell you I'm not a heretic. Well, he looks Catholic. Now, the one drawback here is that this bishop is going to be... Oh, actually, it's -10, so the bishop's not going to be too angry at me, but it is actually something that could have tax implications. Now, as it turns out, everybody loves this pope, so I'm not really going to be able to do anything. I'm not going to be able to... The bishop not liking me by 10 is not going to change anything. That's cool, Akakada. I mean, it's one of the original reasons why I started streaming, which was I started streaming Kerbal Space Program because I thought it would be interesting to have a document of me learning that game. Now, Crusader Kings I obviously have some experience with, so I get to I get to share that when I stream this. But I think especially in the case of something like Crusader Kings 2, I actually think this is a pretty good game. It's one that, you always see the amounts of time that people put into it when you read the reviews. And you're like, okay, these guys are kind of a little nuts about it. But there's a lot going on in it. There's a lot to make it really really worth playing. The only drawback is it's like Dota 2, which is you have to be of the temperament that will actually allow, or that will get you through that really impenetrable starting place. And I would argue that both games, while they have tutorials, Dota 2 has tutorials to teach you how to play, so does Crusader Kings 2, but they really don't teach you what you need to know about playing this. As silly as that sounds, the developers I don't think did that good of a job of telling you exactly what is involved in running a game of Crusader Kings 2 or Dota 2. Like, for instance, the Dota 2 tutorials aren't going to tell you anything about team composition. Like, you could have 5 carries on your team, or you could have 5 supports on your team, and based on the tutorial, you're doing fine as long as you're last hitting properly. But then, I mean, I think that's also intentional on Valve's part, because Valve is pretty open in the fact that they like the community doing things for their games. So if, a Dota 2 expert, one of the people who's far better at playing the game than designing it, I'm sure IceFrog is probably not the best Dota 2 player, even though he made Dota 2. Ask you if you know where QWER's keys are. Yeah, exactly. I actually plan on casting some more Dota 2 over the summer. I probably can't do any playing unless I go to a place with a better internet connection. But there will be a little bit of Dota 2 content that I do over the summer. But yeah, like, basically, I think Valve is... I think in some ways they're even right to, to have community guides and promote them, but I just wish that maybe the tutorials would push you a little bit more towards seeking out those community guides. I mean, I don't think anybody's completely ignorant of the metagame or anything like that, but it'd just be nice if they were a little more upfront in saying that there are elements of this game that we haven't touched that you are going to need to know at some point. So, But yeah, as far as this is concerned, actually, so one funny thing here is that I took the eunuch that the that the merchant gave me, and because they were the most loyal, I've actually appointed them as a successor to any of these bishops should they die. Which I'm sure the Pope's going to be very happy about. I've actually done a couple of Dota 2 casts already, but I never announced them ahead of time. I'll be doing them with a co-caster. I think the one drawback to me with Dota 2 is that I think my strengths lie as an analytical caster. Like, I can't really bring the hype. I'd love to, and it's something that I almost would want to do, almost some kind of like acting lessons for. Well, I guess you don't need to do acting, but like to get some kind of training in order to bring a more energetic kind of commentary. And then my friend who, yep, that's. I do Dota. It's been quite some time since I've actually played Dota 2. That's just because of school. Now, the one thing about Dota 2 for me is that I tend to cast it on OBS, just because if I have like the way that it normally works is that I'll have my friend Nick the Peasant on Twitch. Normally, he'll be the one to actually host the cast, and then I'll just be coming in alongside him, or I'm going to cast a game which is a replay. The reason for that is I haven't played ranked for an MMR. My suspicion though is that I'm probably, I'd say around 3K. I'm not that good. Yeah, exactly. Who needs school when you have Dota? Well, I'm going to be out of school in a little bit, so plenty of time for Dota. The 3K, by the way, is just based on the conversations from the players in a couple. So I played a game where there was a guy who was obviously smurfing. He was playing an Invoker, which just had everything down, perfectly timed combos, just completely wrecking everybody. And everybody's like, oh yeah, some 6K guy destroying 3K people. So I'm like, okay, well, that gives me a rough idea of where I'm at. So... But yeah, I mean, so in general, I wind up casting more Dota because Nick will be hosting it. My bandwidth isn't enough. I mean, my bandwidth is struggling to sustain this particular stream, let alone a Dota 2 one, which is, of course, relying on sending and receiving information. So I'll cast, and again, I feel my strengths are more so on an analytical side, and the drawback is that people don't watch casts just for the analytics. And Nick is a pretty good Dota 2 player. There's definitely a very large skill gap as far as our ability to play the game. As far as our game knowledge or what we're looking for in terms of a cast, I just think we bring different perspectives rather than a necessarily better or worse. But yeah, I mean, I think that's my biggest weakness as a Dota 2 caster. And I'd like to get in touch with some of the people who did casts for other games from the Twitch party, just because I think I could learn a lot from, seeing how somebody brings that kind of energy into a cast. Because I think you definitely can, I think you can do a good job of finding the balance between the two on their own. I don't think you always have to have two people and divide it like that. Yeah, it's a game that it feels like work to me when I play it. And I like that work. I really like putting the time into perfecting a strategy or learning something new about a hero. And the only drawback is that, like, if I'm not, like, sometimes you just want to go to Disneyland. I don't always want to put like that perfect amount of energy into, focusing on an hour-long game where maybe somebody's going to be yelling at me because they're having a bad day or they want to, feel better about themselves or something like that. Like, there's tons of things that go into a Dota 2 game. Some of them good, some of them not as good. So that's one of the reasons why I haven't played as much as I would normally like to. Only grudgingly play with the initiative. See, now last hits is something you can practice on your own, though. You can open up a private lobby and don't equip any items or something like that. I think before Techies came out, Techies is the lowest base damage hero, but before Techies came out, the way you used to do that would be you'd pick Shadow Fiend, you wouldn't level any skills, you wouldn't level any stats, you wouldn't buy any items. You just go to the mid lane, and without an opponent to harass you, you would try to get as many last hits and denies as you could. Oh, when playing supports, yeah. Yeah, if you're playing support, last hitting is probably not as big of a priority. I love support. Vengeful Spirit is my favorite hero, and honestly, playing support to a point where, you know, like your carry does not need to worry about anything is easily one of the most rewarding things about that game to me. I love supporting so well that another player has been able to play their best. The problem is it's also sometimes a very thankless role. Okay, you know what? This is too complicated. Let's just get a big enough ship. Oh, right, I still need to go through these plots. So, in this case here, I don't care about this murder plot because he doesn't have a high opinion of me. Same deal on these. I definitely want the ones that are fabricating claims on my kingdom. I know I can take them out, but it's not really... it's not in my interest to even allow that to happen because the timing might be bad. You don't do hard carry dazzle and get yelled at. Yeah. All right. Actually, so one other thing I wanted to say about casting, which is a little... I really hate thinking in these terms because honestly I think you should be much more focused on what you want to do and then take any, you know, any ideas of success or advancement, make them... I mean, be conscious of them, but not... be conscious of them, but don't make them your... I don't quite know how to say this. Like, don't make them such a focus that you're not true to yourself and what you think is good. Oh, you once hit 3K in a Dota game. So just in red, troll for 5. Yeah, I mean. Oh, I'd love to stream Dota. I definitely casting in the future until I know how to until I basically know how to play the game while you know, play the game without it becoming a completely laggy disaster. Sorry, I got a little distracted. But the one thing I would say in terms of casting, again, I think you should, or anything that you do on Twitch, really. I definitely think you shouldn't be ignorant of where you want to go with everything. So, for instance, oh, that sucks. It's Primogen, sure. Okay, I'm gonna need to think. Sorry, I'll finish the thought on Dota 2 casting. So I think, again, if you go out to like, every once in a while I take a look and see how many people are watching the stream. To me, that's an indication and as to whether or not what I've done over the last little while is interesting enough to attract and retain people. Now, I also like to think that I would never get to a point where I'm pandering for views, right? You know, with that in mind, though, there's also a very specific reason why I stream Crusader Kings 2 on a Friday. Because if I were to look at my following right now, I would have any number of casters who I enjoy watching a lot, and I think are much better than me, although that's not as high, that's not a very high bar to, you know, to hit. But there's a lot of good stuff out on a Friday night, right? So I tremendously enjoy Crusader Kings 2, and I think it's something that I cast reasonably well. But I'm also a little bit conscious in terms of when I decided to put it in this time slot, because I also want to be conscious in terms of how do I position myself in the best way to make sure that, I get what what I want out of the platform. So how does this apply to Dota 2? Well, basically, I think there's definitely a growing number of people who are interested in becoming casters. And I actually think that's a good thing, because as I say with just about any form of entertainment, like, I love having more options. I wish people were writing more books, and I wish people were making more video games. And just overall, I am never going to, to turn down more opportunities to be entertained. My liege, your guest Leofwald has been tragically wounded during the tournament. Most unfortunate. Seems like Crusader Kings doesn't get that many viewers. Absolutely. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why people don't stream it as much. I mean, it's really interesting to me that Europa Universalis... And by the way, hi, Earth Browser. I don't believe I've said hi to you before. I think one of the reasons why... I think in one sense, Crusader Kings 2 is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. One of my experiences on doing Crusader Kings 2 is that I would watch Crusader Kings 2 channels, and it was a guy sitting in silence, clicking a mouse. I mean, it could have been a girl sitting in silence, clicking a mouse for all I knew. And then there'd be a couple which seemed to be... people playing it online, and you would hear people talking, but it would be people talking to each other. They wouldn't necessarily be talking about the game. And one of the things that I enjoy about some of the Europa Universalis classes, I'm not very good at EU4. There's still a lot of things about that game that don't make a lot of sense to me. So it is an opportunity for me to learn a little bit about the game, in addition to seeing how somebody approaches situations. Because definitely, like, this playthrough alone, I've made some extremely suboptimal decisions, but it's an opportunity to see how a game works. Like, to me, the heart and soul of Crusader Kings 2 is Iron Mad mode once you know what's going on. So, another injury. Sorry, I'll keep the game going while I pontificate. So, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I enjoy casting it, because I get an opportunity to talk about what I'm thinking while I play this game. Right now, which is just kind of in a holding pattern while I wait for the tournament to finish. And also so I can get my 10 years under my belt so I can change the succession laws. Yeah, of course, and when I say, super entertaining casters for Crusader Kings 2, part of that's a matter of practice, right? If people don't cast Crusader Kings 2, if they don't get that experience, how can we expect them to grow? Now, the nice thing for me is that I keep conscious in terms of a number of viewers. I like to take that as an indication in terms of what I'm doing well and what I can improve on, but I would never want to get to a point where I'm chasing view numbers. And so I think if people are trying to go onto Twitch and become big, then CK2 isn't necessarily going to be that appealing. If people go on to Twitch and they want to share an experience of a game, then there's a hope for seeing some better CK2 streams. But then, of course, you also run into the possibility that maybe somebody's just going to record their playing of the game and they don't quite have those interactive elements. Like, I know I generally play games worse when I'm casting them, but I also really enjoy sharing games with people. So I don't particularly care that, Heroes of the Storm, I'm suddenly losing to bots. It's really hard to lose to bots in Heroes of the Storm or something like that. But like Risk of Rain, actually, perfect example of Risk of Rain. I pretty regularly take down Providence on normal difficulty Risk of Rain games. And yet I've only really done that twice, both of which are visible in the highlights, by the way. I've really only done that twice when I've done done these Risk of Rain streams. And I've done more than 2 Risk of Rain streams. So I won't bother reading the flavor text unless it's a family member. So I mean, there's the other possibility there too, which is people maybe just want to bring their A game. Their priority isn't necessarily to be an instructional channel, because not every channel needs to be one about an instruction into Crusader Kings 2. But they want to be so focused on the game that they maybe miss what's important to me for a Twitch stream, which is the interaction with other people. Earth Browser, as far as my... Sorry, I keep calling you Earth Browser. Earth Bowser. For Friday nights are going to be my Crusader Kings 2 nights for the foreseeable future. In terms of some other things that we've been playing, there's been a lot of Shadowrun Dragonfall. I normally do that on Mondays. And then I'm going to be playing some more Darkest Dungeon, which I played for a little bit. I haven't put a ton of time into as a good fellow named AK-47, EHK Canadian. As he pointed out, I'm at that point where I kind of know a little bit about what I'm doing in the Darkest Dungeon, but just enough to really frustrate the people who actually know how to play that game. What else do I play? There's quite a bit. Which for whatever reason I can't think of. I generally try to avoid first-person shooters and action games, not because I don't like them, I actually really enjoy them, but because I have to stream at a low bitrate, they don't always look that good. So one exception I might make for that is I've got the Talos Principle, and my god, that game is great. So I want to see if it's possible for me to stream that without completely offending everybody's sensibilities. We did some Antichamber, which was good, and I also really enjoyed, and probably, I think one of the first games that I completed the whole way through was Gods Will Be Watching. Oh, Earth Bowser, thank you so much for hitting the follow button. 1v1 Rust? Actually, I haven't played Call of Duty or Rust. I should actually note I'm currently streaming on a MacBook Pro, so I'm also a little bit limited in terms of what games I can play. I do have a gaming PC, but it is a fairly outdated machine. Oh, I need to build some infrastructure. It's a fairly outdated machine, so I don't stream on that just because the quality would be even worse on this one. Kappa. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about this game. I'm sorry, I was going to talk about Dota 2 casting again, but let's talk a little bit about this game because I've been talking over some of these moves in Crusader Kings 2, and this is actually going to be shaping how sort of the closing chapters of the House of Rose come down. So we've actually got some new people in the channel. I'll talk a little bit about how this game started off. I think this is my second or third Iron Man game in Crusader Kings 2. And this time I set myself the goal of seeing how far I can get from the smallest start. Oh, actually, that's a perfect question for you to ask right now, Earth Bowser, because I can tell you exactly when I started this campaign. So when I started this game, I only had the Old God. Well, I had other expansions, but like the earliest start date I had was the Old Gods. So I think that's an 867 start date. And the goal of this playthrough was to go from a count and to see how big I could make everything. So I started off as the Count of Westmoreland, and we slowly started expanding our territory. First we fought for our independence from the Vikings, and then we expanded into at least one other county, and then we wanted to take Lancaster, but Lancaster was owned by England, and so we accepted vassalization by England so we could take Lancaster. They gave us the duchy, and then we married to create a sort of a blood tie to the throne of Scotland, which just so happened that we got a casus belli when they had a particularly weak military, and so we seized the throne of Scotland, and then basically slowly started expanding out. So we eventually picked apart England piece by piece. We moved into Ireland, which was sort of the last piece to fall. And then we just sort of took some islands up in the start here and, founded Britannia. So this game has been going for just a little over 400 years in game time. The original plan was to take Spain because Spain was originally all Muslim. And then they declared a crusade, and the Teutonic Order just wound up taking a ton of territory, which all of a sudden makes the progress in Spain a lot slower. I do finally have the opportunities to get sort of the western coast, which was an original plan. But when the Teutonic Order had a lot more of this map, we took a bit of a trip to Scandinavia, so we have a few holdings here. Through some marriages, we also wind up with these weird little colonies. Overall, the map is not quite as tidy as I would like it to be. But my focus is very much on Spain at the moment. And the hope is to basically take these remaining two counties. We now have another one opened up here, so I guess there's 3 more little sort of skirmishes I'll do. And then I sort of need to figure out how to take apart this beast of the Teutonic Order. They do have 30,000 troops, I'm currently sitting on 48, so as far as numbers are concerned, I'm in a fairly good spot. But the drawback here is that I also need to send them by ship. So it's going to be a fairly complicated affair to try and take any territory in Spain here. Oh yeah, I'm having an absolute blast. And then of course getting it's just a great opportunity to get a lot of these achievements unlocked. Now one of the drawbacks with my near constant warring, especially because I don't always make the best strategic decisions, is that I've been neglecting my infrastructure for a while. So right now I'm just trying to catch up as far as universities are concerned. Actually, it looks like we're slowly on our way. It looks like it's technology that's actually holding us back on that. So, which is, of course, the whole reason why we're building universities. Random colonies always drive you nuts. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I could grant them their freedom, but like it's not a big deal to me, right? Like the worst that could possibly happen would be somebody declares a war on me for that county. And, I just can't get enough troops there in time. Okay, so we've got at least one university we can build, or, well, upgrade. Okay, so it looks like I just need one more, so I'll speed it up and watch that money come in. I also want to make sure that all my advisors are doing what they're supposed to. So, looks like I need to be dealing with some factions, and I don't know why my Chancellor isn't doing something interesting. Let's just take a quick look. So, Christian, and Christian. Yeah, so the whole reason why I started making these moves on Spain was so that I could have a convenient casus belli through Holy War. But unfortunately, that's not happening, so let's just fabricate a claim and get it over with. Yeah, I mean, in the ideal world, I would, of course, expand my empire out to the point where I do take Burgon, but, I mean, there's only about 200 years left in this playthrough, and I can really only take one county at a time. I'm not gonna be taking out the Teutonic Order in anything even remotely close to good time, so it just kind of sits there. All right. I'm not actually worried about the might of any of these factions, but again, it's just one of these cases where it's better for me to just put the pin in this as soon as I can. Actually, what I should be doing is seeing if I have better people for every position. So I'm going to be appointing people who hate me, but I'm actually going to take that risk. I think this is because, if I remember correctly, the last time we did this playthrough, we actually just started playing this guy. So yeah, they hate him because his domain's too big. That's unfortunate, but I'm not giving up the holdings because most of the rulers have actually been able to handle that. And yeah, short reign. Thanks, yep. That's... And actually, I just started playing Guild Wars 2 tonight. It's a really fun game. I don't believe we actually have a Holy Roman Empire. I know what you mean in terms of like the group, but we've just got this bizarre little amalgamation of France, the Byzantine Empire, Germany. I'm most worried about Italy. Oh, actually, Italy's currently undergoing a revolution, so I'm not worried about Italy anymore. There's something I was saying. Yeah, I can't even explain how the Byzantine Empire is up here. It's yeah. Oh, and let's not forget the Golden Horde, which is completely annexed. I don't even remember who this used to be. Was it Hungary? Must have been Hungary. But yeah, I mean, the Golden Horde is just... I mean, I'm glad I've got my island. That's all I can say. Alright, I think I'm just going to fast forward the game while I... Oh, wait a minute. I fired a bunch of advisors and then didn't reappoint them. These are the kinds of exciting things that you see on the System Shock stream. Actually, I guess I technically don't really need to be training troops. I'm gonna hold off on my priest for a moment. So one problem we've been running into is these random heresies breaking out. I think they're more or less taken care of now, but I still have some heathen religions within my borders, so let's proselytize instead of research. Oh yeah, I only just started buying some of the DLC for, like, the portrait DLC, so even, like, adding one of them sort of makes it really weird to look back on stuff, but I agree, it's completely bizarre to, you know, do something like this, or, like, click over in areas where, like, I know what the other portraits sort of look like. I'm trying to look for some good examples, but yeah, like, and I mean, I can remember back when all the units looked the same no matter what culture they were. So it's kind of funny how used you get, sorry, how used to a particular look you get in this game. I mean, I suppose that's why the DLC is so profitable for Paradox, but yeah, I mean, I like to support developers that make games that I enjoy, but I actually find Paradox's DLC to be relatively unfriendly. A good example was when I bought this game, I think I probably spent about 10 minutes filling my shopping cart with the relevant DLC that I actually wanted to play. And just, I really can't help but feel nickeled and dimed every time I take a look at what's available. Like, for instance, to be able to convert this game into Europa Universalis 4, it's like something like $5. Now, I mean, okay, boo-hoo, I need to spend $5 or something like that. But if you consider, like, we're at a point now where developers are releasing soundtracks, something that they would originally, you know, charge you something like between $10 and $15 for. You know, developers are at a point now where they're giving things like that as thank yous, and Paradox is taking people who say, it's like, you just bought 2 of our flagship titles, and instead of saying thank you for doing so, here's a way you can enjoy these 2 titles even more, they're like, yeah, you need to spend $5 to do something like that. So yeah, so I mean, in the end, the big thing is that I see a value in the DLC. I don't see it in all of them. Like, I don't own the Sunset Invasion DLC. But I definitely want to give a signal that even, like, Way of Life, I think, is an expansion I'd be really interested in playing. But I want to be very clear to Paradox in saying that if you keep doing this, I am not interested in supporting you on anything but the cheapest terms. I think, you know, I would much prefer to just pay for what I consider to be a complete product with a minimum of fuss, rather than having this bizarre, like, 200... Like, I'll put it to you this way. I do not think Crusader Kings 2 is worth $300, which is what I think, like, the face value of all of the DLC is. And I wouldn't recommend people pay that much for it. And so, by necessity, I say, I am going to enforce the price tag that I feel is fair, even if that means that I enjoy an incomplete game. Over 400, that's ridiculous. And I mean, again, I say this as somebody who has nothing but good things to say about Crusader Kings 2 as well. Like, I really like that they made it its own thing, that Europa Universalis 4 captures the world as sort of its time period, you know, as its time period merits. And basically, Crusader Kings 2 is about a time where interpersonal relationships matter a lot more, where you're not really worried about these abstract entities of nations, you know, and building up that, you know, that prestige and that power for a nation state. You're a little bit more concerned about building up your own individual power and, you know, working within the other interests inside of your realm to try and govern. I mean, those are all the sorts of things that I'm really interested in these kinds of games. So it's why I think Crusader Kings 2 is a good game, and it's worth, you know, worth playing on its own. Oh, actually, this one I shouldn't implement yet. Yeah, I mean, it's a game that I would very strongly recommend to just about anybody. But that does come with the conditions in terms of what I think is fair game as far as pricing is concerned. That's what I hear, which is, I mean, all the more reason not to get it when it's first released, right? As much as I hate to say that. I'll talk a little bit about succession laws here. So, Asturias was it's a kingdom that I usurped. Now, they decided to go for agnatic instead of agnatic cognatic primogeniture, which means that currently I'm going to lose one kingdom if this character dies. Now, what I need here is that I need to have vassals or counts that have basically a positive opinion of me, and I need to have been ruling for 10 years. So I usually within the 10 years I get everybody on my side anyway. But if this character should die before then, basically I'm going to lose this title. The one thing I could do if I ever thought that was a concern would be I could destroy that title and then just refound it, but that winds up costing prestige, which I'd rather not lose. I've just started Guild Wars 2, yep, that's so I don't know about the grind, but something tells me now I'm probably going to wind up hating it as much as you do. The grind, that is, not Guild Wars 2. I actually think Guild Wars 2 looks really interesting. So I'll also explain why I got rid of... it's an ideal for me to have max crown authority just because I, advance my levies. It does mean that the feudal vassals have a lower opinion of me, but whatever, it takes a lot to make me cry. I do consider it a small drawback that vassals can no longer wage war, and that's just because sometimes when vassals wage war, you actually get some interesting territories, and you don't need to worry about forming a casus belli of your own. I'm past that point now. I would actually want to have a little bit more control over my realm, and more importantly, the kinds of targets I'm going to be going after are fairly big entities, so I do actually want to make sure that my troop numbers are where they need to be. To give you an example too, let us not forget that the Abbasids are sitting on... Okay, that's a bad example. So it currently says 10,000 troops, but I believe they're at the 90,000 range. This seems wrong because they used to have a lot more. This says 45,000. So maybe they must have lost something to the Golden Horde. So what is the Golden Horde sitting on? 54, 23. Actually, neither of them is quite as scary as I thought they would be. I think the Golden Horde, once they regain their strength, probably will be a pretty credible threat. The Abbasids were definitely at a point where they had 100,000 troops, though. Wait a minute. There we go. I just went one layer too low. Yeah, so 106,000 troops is pretty spooky. Again, I mean, there's two ways of dealing with that, which is, of course, I unite Europe under the banner of Britannia, or I just wait for them to get weakened as they go conquer everything else. But yeah, exactly, Earth Bowser. And I mean, as you can see, I'm dealing with a lot of factions. All of them are relatively weak because my empire has been constructed in such a way that my vassals remain weak. But if they, if I let them just run around and do whatever they want, that can change on me. I can actually remember one of the first times, so I didn't understand how demens worked. Oh, this is really cool that they're giving up some of these titles. So So I didn't quite know how the demand size thing... Or no, sorry, it wasn't demand size. It was the number of duchies you could have. Because there's no point in the tutorials where it says you can only have 2 duchies. So basically I would have these rulers who would just have a near infinite number of duchies. And like every time there would be a succession, like everybody has a negative 100 opinion of this guy. Like it's just a revolution every single time I have a new ruler. I'm like, this game is so hard. What's going on? And then I find out that people dislike you if you have more than 2 duchies. So part of my deliberate crippling of vassals comes from the fact that I have played a game where basically a ruler dying meant I would have some kind of a revolution on my hands. Let's just take a quick look at the plots. Yeah, exactly, because he boss. It was I mean, and again, it's a very easy mistake to make when you're playing the first time, because, you know, unless you specifically go and like I'll take my wife as an example. If I put my mouse over it, oh wait, it's my wife, so she's not even going to care about what I hold. But let's take one of my vassals here, right? Like unless you actually specifically look at all of this nonsense down below, you're never going to know why they're mad at you. Like, I know my demand is too big, but I'm never going to drop my demand below 9. This is just because I have a particularly weak stewardship ranking for this guy. You know, female heir. There's nothing I can do about that other than, you know, start pumping out some sons. So, you know, given the fact that some of these I'm not that interested in, it's very easy to imagine somebody playing, you know, this is what happened to me, playing through the game a couple of times, not appreciating that, you know, I'm the Duke of 7 different areas, and that's why everybody's rebelling against me. The problem with you is that nobody likes your only gay bastard son. You know, I think 2 generations into this playthrough, we had a single gay son, and we were worried that was the end of the bloodline, but he did his job for the House of Rose. A lot of people in chat didn't like that son, but he did his duty. There are a number of different holy places that you could visit on your pilgrimage, all of them are considered most sacred by the Holy Church, but a somewhat closer destination might mean a safer journey. I'm actually just going to go to... Oh, hello! I haven't actually played this late into the game, so I didn't realize that there were some other options. Let's start by going to the tomb of Thomas Becket in Canterbury, so it's going to be a short walk. Your Imperial Majesty, blessings upon you and your house. Your demand is just. My scheming was obviously misdirected. I hope that you find it in you to forgive me. Okay, I'm never going to read those messages again because they're begging letters. My things are packed. Everything is in order. Soon I shall see fair Canterbury and the tomb of Thomas Becket. All right, let's see if I can get that Dota 2 casting idea out of the way. So, I guess so I was talking a little bit about growing interest in terms of casting Dota 2. I think it's very easy to believe that you are an analytical caster. Now, this is not to say that I think people are bad analytical casters, because I'm not a particularly good Dota 2 caster on my own. But I think, you know, if you watch somebody like Toby1 or LD or somebody like that, like, they can bring so much energy into the cast, and it's really hard to try and capture that yourself. Because, I mean, I honestly think that is a genuine energy that they have and can bring out. Now, I mean, given the kinds of games that I play, for instance, Earthbowser, one of the games I forgot to mention, one of the first ones that I completed on this channel was Gods Will Be Watching, which I tremendously enjoyed, but it's basically like the Dark Souls of LucasArts adventure games. Like, you're going to be talking about how you get through these, like, really tough scenarios. So my temperament is such that I tend to like discussing strategy. I tend to like discussing these kinds of these kinds of ideas. And so it would make sense that I do a little bit more analysis, maybe a little bit less play-by-play. But of course, if you are in an environment where everybody calls themselves an analytical caster because they are scared they can't bring the hype like Toby-Wan, then it's very difficult to differentiate yourself. And again, like I said, my goal should be to put on the best Dota 2 cast I can first, and then consider any sort of popularity or something like that second. But with that in mind, it would be nice if I could find a better balance between those two, because I think it's possible to give exciting commentary while also being sufficiently analytical. The homosexual trait is only like a 10% hit to fertility. Absolutely true, so it's not that bad. Some of my gay characters had tons of children. The game you were telling about, the game where you killed your 8 wives... The first wife everyone hated, so he killed her. Was the one your guy loved. At the time, I thought the people were just insane and enjoyed assassinations, so you did it a lot more. Oh. See, and actually, so this is one of the other nice things about Crusader Kings 2's tutorials, right? Is that they leave much to be desired, but some of the stuff that you get into, not knowing the implications of what you're doing, is better than, than what a pure strategy would result in. So I don't know. I think it's all fun. All right, as you pass through a small village along the pilgrim's path, an old woman comes up to you. She's recognized you as a pilgrim and explains that her daughter and her family live close to your destination. They are suffering hard times, and she asks you to bring them a large purse of money. Of course I will help you. And there's no benefit to adding the 10 gold because I already have charitable, so... During the last couple of days, you've made company on the road with a holy knight on his way to the same destination. You have a lively and interested in conversation, and you find out that you have many things in common. How unexpected to make a new friend so far. Yes, Canterbury. So far from home. How unexpected to make a new friend this far from home. And he's a Templar. That's fine. It's the Teutonic Order that I don't like. Canterbury. You've arrived at Canterbury. It is beautifully situated on the river south in Kent and southeast England. The town itself and the surrounding meadows are full of pilgrims from all over Europe. You start to make your way through the hustle and bustle, eager to see the famous cathedral and contemplate the tomb of the martyr Thomas Becket, who was viciously murdered inside the cathedral itself. A green and pleasant land. The bustling mass of pilgrims is impressive, as are the many languages, colors, and ways of dress present. People come here from west, east, north, and south. You are standing at a place where the roads meet, and that is where people and ideas meet. So this one gives me a 30% chance of gaining a skill, whereas this one is a 50% chance of gaining Gregarious, which I don't believe I already have. Especially because I have a lot of vassals who don't like me that much. I'm going to go for the slightly better probability of gaining the higher diplomacy, which I did get. Another side effect of this, of course, is that I was working to improve my diplomacy. And so I wound up gaining some prestige just for fulfilling that ambition. Now, normally what I like to do is raise the ambitions that have... that are closest to 8 so I can gain that extra prestige. What I'm going to do here first is actually go for have a son. Basically to try and tilt the scales a little bit towards getting an heir that's not going to wind up breaking up the kingdom. And then I'm actually going to go for stewardship just because in the end I really need to get that... I really need to get that under control because it's just a big weight on my... on the relationship values with some of my vassals. You finally returned from your pilgrimage. It was a rewarding and interesting journey, and you'd do it all again if you could. Still, it's good to be back home. I actually made a slight mistake on that pilgrimage just because normally I do it right when I start a new leader, just so I can get, that monthly piety bonus for as long as I can. But I rather foolishly just finished the broadcast once this guy became emperor. I didn't actually do anything afterwards, so it's easy to forget stuff like that. will obligate the vassal to stop conspiring. Honored Emperor, thank you for reminding me of my duties and obligations as your vassal. You are right, of course. For the foreseeable future, you have my promise not to support factions conspiring against you. And we're on to the next one. Normally for this, I just take a look at the largest size faction. So in this case, Lower Crown Authority in Scotland. And my Spy Master goes to Moray. And there is a small possibility I may be going to war, depending on how good my Chancellor is at gaining the fabrication. I mean, it is an 18% chance. It's actually not that bad, but he hasn't given us the goods yet. So I am going to research military tech, just because in the end, this is just one county that I'm going to be going after, and they've got 1,000 troops. So, I mean, I don't even need to bring anybody overseas. My retinue will be enough to handle them. The Way of Life DLC, the pilgrimage is only available if you take the theology focus. That's really interesting. So that's actually kind of neat, because I consider some of these other expansions that I put on, which I think are really interesting, but my playstyle hasn't changed that much. So like, for instance, when Charlemagne came in, I didn't change my playstyle a whole lot when I got that DLC. Obviously, I can play longer games now. But to have a different kind of focus and have that be what decides whether or not I can go on a pilgrimage is actually a really big deal for me. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what the game looks like after I get that. I also did try out the Game of Thrones mod, so it worked, and I didn't need to mess around at all with the game, which is fantastic. It just turns out that it's actually it's a larger expansion than I thought it would be. Well, sorry, a larger mod than I thought it would be. Like, there's a whole bunch of mechanics that they've added inside the game, which I don't understand. Like, I just thought it was going to change the names of everything, but they did a really good job of it. So I'll probably stream that sometime over the summer, but I need to learn it first. And I mean, the flip side of that is, if I'm going to spend some time learning a Paradox title, there is a bit of an argument for trying to learn Europa Universalis 4, especially because there's the possibility of me bringing this playthrough into it. So, but I mean, summer's summer, right? I'll have time for both, most likely. But thanks for letting me know that, Earth Bowser. That actually makes me a little bit more interested in Way of Life. I have a feeling that'll probably go on sale during the Steam sale, but it may not as well, because I don't think there's been any CK2 expansion. I think that's the most recent one. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you a whole lot based on my experience, but I can tell you just by looking at it and spending a little bit of time inside of it, they put a lot of effort into that mod, and it's not like, so there are definitely some games that you can play where it's obvious that, they've put a lot of, do all the assassinations happen at weddings with the mod? I guess that's up for you to decide. Yep, that's yeah, so I mean, you can definitely see some games where you can say it's like, okay, well, this is a team which had a lot of ambition and absolutely no talent. But like in the case of the Game of Thrones mod, it's very clear that they love their subject matter. So these are people who I'm sure could tell me more than I would ever want to know about George R.R. Martin's, world, about his the series that he's written. And it seems pretty clear, at least at first blush, that they have a pretty good idea about what makes Crusader Kings 2 good, and why, and how you can sort of you can be true to the experience of these books and not completely mangle the game experience, right? Like this is a great example of, this is something that movies tend to get wrong a lot. So like, Zack Snyder, the guy who did The guy who did the 300 adaptation and Watchmen and stuff like that. So I worked as a cameraman for a little while. And I will tell you, like, this guy has got a really great visual sense, right? Nobody can complain about 300 being a bad-looking movie. And I mean, obviously his cinematographer has something to do with that as well, but all of his movies look great. And he just, he has this gift for making things look exciting and dramatic, and he's got a way of making you want to actually sit in and watch this thing on the big screen. I haven't seen a Superman movie, by the way. I am speaking a little bit about older Zack Snyder movies because I haven't seen all the Orson Welles movies, so it's kind of hard to justify going out and watching some of this some of the more modern stuff, which is a bit more popcorny. But I see there's a couple of things in chat. I'll just finish this thought before I follow up on it. But I didn't care as much for the Watchmen adaptation. And it's very clear that he wanted to be as true to that comic as possible. He did frame-for-frame recreations of certain moments from that book. And this is the problem, because Watchmen is a comic book. It is a masterful example of what a comic book can do. And a comic book is not a still movie. A comic book has its own conventions, and it has its own, it sort of has its own way of expressing itself. And so in trying to remain quote-unquote true to the comic, he made what I thought was an inferior film, because films do some things better than comics, and comics do some things better than films. So this is just a long way of saying that the Game of Thrones mod doesn't seem to have fallen into that trap, which is the Game of Thrones mod knows what makes Crusader Kings 2 fun. It knows what people seem to want out of the Game of Thrones world in terms of being able to play it in a game. And they did this nice job of just pushing Crusader Kings in a different direction from where Paradox wanted to take it, while still making sure that it remained true both to its subject matter and also the prime directive, I will say, of being a fun video game. So, you like the way of life. Different focuses make it pretty cool. You need to get rid of... Oh, they get rid of the improve X ambitions, though, so you have to take the relevant focus to do that. They also give you a chance to improve your education if you take the appropriate related focus. Yeah, well, I mean, I'll admit, right, the ambition system, I think, is a little... I think the ambition system is a little lumpy. It's... It's okay for what it is, but like it's really hard to see something like the ambition system as anything but, I'm just going to wait for a sequence of randomly generated numbers to come up to decide whether or not I get, an improvement to this trait. Like, it really doesn't feel like you're controlling that much of your character, whereas Way of Life seems to want to make the progress that your character makes a lot more about their personal story. So, for instance, I think an equivalent of Way of Life for for Europa Universalis would be really inappropriate, because the head of state is actually a very small part of, the power structures in Europa Universalis 4. But Crusader Kings 2 is all about the individual. And so I think Way of Life is actually a really appropriate choice for them. So... Sorry for the movie digression, by the way. That was the best terms in which I could explain the Game of Thrones expansion, or modification, rather. I know I'm not talking about the game that much right now. One of the drawbacks is that I've been in a holding pattern for the last little while, just while I'm waiting on my CB in the county. I'm sort of ticking down my rule in order to bring in the agnatic cognatic succession. I still haven't got my 10 years in. I could maybe start working on the vassals, but that would prevent me from making any progress on my CB. I guess we can take a look at some technology. So I am going to be taking over Muslim lands, but I do a fairly good job of converting them relatively quickly, so I think we will do popular customs first, and then religious customs second, just because religion tends to be very fickle. I'm not going to put anything in military quite yet, just because shipbuilding is the least interesting to me. Military organization would be nice, although I've already got a point in that, and so I'd probably do... not sure if I want to do light infantry or heavy infantry first. I always upgrade cavalry last. And it'd be really cool to do trade practices here, but the drawback is I don't really have any advantage from trade, so I'll do construction instead just so I can get that university built faster. Oh, thanks for saying that, Earth Bowser. I don't actually play that much EU4 Earth Bowser. I do, I dabble in it. I'd never play an Iron Man game of it because I don't understand it that well. But I'm really interested in learning it, if I'm completely honest. It's just, I run into a lot of, like, the reason why I don't play it more is I will be in these situations where I have superior military technology, you know, I outnumber them militarily, and, like, having them add a single, you know, troop at the end of the combat is somehow enough for me to completely lose that encounter. Like, just these complete BS moments as far as combat is concerned. So until I actually learn what's going on with those, I hold off. I hold off playing Iron Man just because I know I'd get too frustrated, so... And yeah, I can tell you for certain, yep, that your heirs can plot to assassinate you. I've actually had to stop a couple of those plots in this playthrough, but I don't have a son right now, so I don't need to worry about that. I mean, my daughter could try it, but I don't believe my daughter's old enough to want to kill me yet. No, she's 2. Yeah, Earth Bowser, I should actually let you know, so one of the things that I did before I started streaming on Twitch was there's a game by Amplitude Studio. Actually, this is another game that I play, and not as much recently, but I'd like to get back into it. So Amplitude Studios made Dungeon of the Endless. Now, I think Amplitude games they're a lot of fun, but they also suffer from the fact that their tutorials are not as clear as they should be. For instance, Endless Legend looks fantastic, but it's a little bit like EU4. I haven't played that much of it just because I don't quite get what's going on. I should have a fairly easy combat, which winds up being a loss or a near win just because I don't know what's going on. So I didn't actually do any Let's Plays. I didn't do anything else with Crusader Kings 2. I just kind of worked my way through it. So I actually intend to sit down and do some I mentioned Dungeon of the Endless because I said it's like, okay, well, this happened with Endless Space, which is the first game. This is happening with Dungeon of the Endless. I'm going to write a Steam guide, and this Steam guide is going to be the guide that I wish I had when I was starting to play Dungeon of the Endless. And it was reasonably well received. You can still read it now if you have the game, although you probably, if you've played Dungeon of the Endless is not impossible to learn. It's just I thought their tutorial could have been better. So given that I have a bit of a background in that, I was thinking, I don't know if I would do one for Crusader Kings 2, but I think because I want to learn Europa Universalis for myself, I might actually try writing a guide, because one of the things I've learned, like when I tutor somebody in economics, I wind up learning a lot more about economics. You know, even though I kind of know what I'm doing with that on its own, I just learn so much more when I'm teaching somebody. So if I say it's like, okay, I want to write the guide that I wish I had starting off with EU4, I need to think about all the things that I haven't gotten an answer for before. I also need to think of the kinds of questions that maybe I haven't asked, but somebody else would. And in that case, 1, I wind up learning the game, but 2, I wind up with a document that I might be able to give out. So, oh, that's really cool. I don't know if your buddy likes watching Twitch or not, but I will be making an effort over the summer to to play a bit more of that game. So if he wants to watch, I'll try and at least announce that kind of stuff ahead of time. But yeah, I mean, I think Dungeon of the Endless is a really good game. It's maybe it didn't stick with me as long as I thought it would once it became a full release, but I don't know. I like it. I still like playing it every once in a while. I find it curious that Catholic priests are constantly pestering Torgodorio, no matter what he promises to do, or no matter how much money he bestows to the Catholic Church. I know what he can do, but it doesn't say what. What's the job I'm hoping for once I'm out of school? Well, I'm technically out of school on Friday when I do my thesis defense, but I have applied and was accepted to grad school. So my current plan is another year of school plus TAing. Although the great news is that one of my profs has already asked me to be a TA for them, so I'm gonna have a fairly good teaching assistant job for the next year. And then when I properly get out of school, so there's one of two things that could happen, which is I could go and do a PhD, which I haven't taken off the table. That would definitely involve several years of very hard work, and that would either lead me... The two most likely outcomes of that would either be to become an academic, so professor at some kind of a university, or to work for the Bank of Canada, which is, the equivalent in the States would be the Federal Reserve. With a master's degree, it would probably be a little bit more likely that I would work in the private sector, although government also has demand for economists. But with that in mind, to me, I think games should be treated a little bit more seriously academically than they should. Like, it seems that it tends to be a bit of a fringe subject, or it tends to be something through which people are trying to get at another idea. But the big thing is that economics is a social science, one that's concerned with human behavior. Like, if you think about a lot of these games, a lot of them are these weird kind of constrained optimization problems. So like if you're playing StarCraft, how many resources can you mine? How many of those resources can you dedicate to make more SUVs in order to get, to get that resource edge without being overrun by your enemy, stuff like that. And so I guess the big thing is it would be really interesting to see how much you can get studying games on their own terms and learning about other human behavior. And the big thing is that, gaming is a very large part of my life, as are my academic interests. And so with that in mind, with a master's in economics, I would actually very seriously consider doing something like applying to Twitch as a data scientist. Because as an economist, I definitely know a thing or two about finding cause and effect from data, whereas I suspect the kind of applicant that Twitch might more likely get would be a programmer who knows about stats and so isn't necessarily going to have to have considered things from the perspective that economics gives. Again, it's not to suggest that one is better than the other, but rather that having people with both perspectives working under the same roof would lead to a better quality of data analysis. Hey, Freighter5, it's good to see you again. I am in Canada, yes. Specifically British Columbia. I'm just going to take a quick look here and see Adventure Capitalist. Let me sorry guys, I'm going to just hold off in a quick second. I'm not going to play the video or that. I just want to see, I'll read out the description of Adventure Capitalist. Hey there, fancy pants. Have you ever found yourself queuing up for your favorite interactive adventure, only to wish for something to fill the empty space while you're waiting? Well, have we got a deal for you? Introducing Adventure Capitalist, the game where you play while playing each other better games. Adventure Capitalist is the world's greatest capitalism simulator. Start with a humble lemonade stand and squeeze your way to total fiscal domination. Earn ridiculous sums of cash to diversify your investments and attract smarmy angel investors to give your businesses a boost. And the best part is, Adventure Capitalist can even play itself. Get your business booming and hire a manager to keep making the dough while you're gone. Money keeps accumulating while you're offline, just waiting for you to come back and spend, spend, spend. It's so easy, even a socialist could do it. The job creator was within you all along. Now let the rest of the world show the rest of the world what you're made of. Hint, it's money. Start your rags to riches adventure, only in Adventure Capitalist. I am absolutely downloading this game. Freighter 5, it's actually the same European vacation. It's just with much lower expectations as far as what we'll accomplish. So we'll ask our vassal to stop conspiring politely. Basically, I'm hoping by the end of this we will have the west coast of Spain. And I sincerely hope that the Teutons actually lose these territories to revolution. So yep, I'm probably not going to stream on Monday just because I have an exam the next day, but week following, or maybe even the weekend, because I'm not going to have, I'm not going to have school to worry about. But if it's, I don't know, that seems like a neat game, so it's something I'll try to stream over the weekend. Yeah, it does. I mean, I've played Democracy 3 on this channel, so I'd be really interested to see how Adventure Capitalist goes. So let me think about what I've got lined up for. So again, we're just gonna do a holding pattern because I don't have a lot of money and I'm waiting on my CB to come up. Stuart Mayer's school has some interesting ideas about how to improve the economy. We'll adopt his ideas. Clearly, it's supply-side economics. It's a little cookie cutter. Oh, this one. I mean, joke games can be good. I think an example of one which I thought was an interesting idea, but probably didn't stand as a game. I didn't actually play it, but I watched like Total Biscuit's review of it. Was Social Justice Warriors. So like that's a fantastic idea where that is a game that probably could have rested as somebody like telling a joke at a table during a game developers meeting and not actually turning it into a game. But I don't know, as long as Adventure Capitalist sustains my interest for a couple of hours, I think it's a free game, right? It's not like I can complain that loudly if it's not fun. But it's a fun little premise for sure. But yeah, I mean, I really didn't answer the question of what I want to do after school that well. And that's partly no. It's a background game, like a game to play. Oh, like, no, don't play it? Oh, that's what the Crusade's for. It's to get Hungary back. Probably means I'm not actually going to be able to go on these wars then. Oh, but we got our CB, so let's use it. Oh yeah, layout or a dream. Oh, so I get it now. Sorry. I'm always bad at retaining context in chat. I mean, the big thing is that I really enjoy the study of economics, which does make so a lot of people will study a subject and want to become a professor because they don't see the other options. And that bothers me sometimes because I don't necessarily think it always has to be, I don't even know how to say this properly, but like the option shouldn't be, I do higher education or I starve, or sorry, like I become a professor or I starve. Like I think there is value in having an MA in philosophy and doing work in the private sector. Yeah, I got it. Yep, I also know there's a delay in terms of Twitch, so Now, the thing is, for me, like the desire to become a professor would just be because I do see the study of the kinds of subjects that I'm dealing with in economics as an end in itself. I think it's something that brings me a lot of joy. I think there is some value in doing that kind of research, both for myself and in terms of just, advancing the frontiers of knowledge. However well I can do that. I mean, I'm certainly not under any illusions about my skill in that. But, I think it's something that I could, in principle, make some kind of a contribution for. And so that would be any desire to become a professor on my own side. But with that in mind, like the Bank of Canada is an environment which actually puts a lot of emphasis on research and on the theoretical aspects of economics, in addition to the fact that it needs to set monetary policy for the nation. So that has two very strong appeals to me, which is, number one, it is actually in service to a tangible end, and one that is, in principle, going to serve Canadians better. But it's also one where, I do get to, to roll up my sleeves and really go into those tough theoretical problems and work with them. So... when I use my spymaster to dissuade vassals from factions, how often does it work? You always seem to just piss your vassals off. Well, I've never really pissed them off. It seems like it always works for me, and it's more of a question in how long does it take the spymaster to do the work. I don't know if it's a difference of skill. I mean, this spymaster is probably, I'd say, in the bottom third of skill. I think like my lowest skill spymaster from memory was 16 or something like that, which is still a relatively high ability to have. I have had other playthroughs where the spymaster isn't successful, but in this case here, he almost always seems to get what he wants. Jihad for Andalusia. The great Sunni Caliph, Azam, has decided to call a jihad against the Kafirs in the Kingdom of Andalusia. He urges all righteous Sunni Muslims to take up arms against the depraved Hochmeister, Eustanios of the Teutonic Order for the glory of Islam. Allah is merciful. See, it says what terrible news, but this is fantastic. I am going to get so many Holy War CBs in this area. Actually, speaking of religious strife, yeah, I still got that. Although, actually, you make a point. Maybe it's difference in DLC. You think you get different options from what I was having. That's possible. I think the only difference in DLC that we probably have is the way of life, but that doesn't mean that that's not a meaningful change. I just want to make sure. So it's the Duchess of Moray that was... Okay, it's none there. So let's just take a look at the example. So we're going to take Lower Crown Authority in England, which actually has 42% of my troop strength. I really let that fester longer than I should have. So his chances... Yeah, so in this case here, the chance of being discouraged is 46.61% yearly. So he definitely has a very healthy probability just to start off with. And I suspect I've just got that. I suspect I'm riding on an advantage that was built up much earlier in the game. All right, I really hate the fact that I'm probably going to lose some... Oh, he's not participating in the crusade. This is excellent news, and I'm going to add to my holdings. In fact, let's be even more bold and start working on our next CB. So I haven't declared war yet just because I'd like to get my retinue in place. I'm not even going to raise any vassals for this. Because it's, what was it, 1,000 troops? Yeah, almost 2,000. The crusade for Hungary fails. The Lord, it seems, does not favor the Christian faithful. After a string of defeats and setbacks, Pope Innocent II has called off the crusade for Hungary against Kagan Kantula of the Golden Whore. Golden Horde. Golden Horde. A black day. So I know some of my delivery's a little bit off tonight. Well, I mean, it's always hit or miss to begin with, but I'm sort of feeling the effects of the study period. And I mean, I am a little conscious of the fact that I do need to get some studying in tonight, so I'm trying to be as present as I can, but I know I'm slipping a little bit in terms of my normal conduct. So again, it's a pretty easy job of crushing 1,700 troops under 7,000, so in this case, there's no reason to raise anything else. Golden Horde works too, yeah, indeed it does. I don't think I have the 18 plus flag on for tonight, but... Oh god, we completely wiped them out. And at the last of a mere 43 troops. So I mean, there is still a problem with this overall strategy, right? Is there's a a jihad for Andalusia going on. This is a case where I would want a stronger Teutonic Order, basically so they can soak up the majority of the Muslim force. Right now, they're fighting revolutions in addition to this jihad. So, and they've already lost the crusade for Hungary. So I think the reality is that they're going to be swept aside a little bit faster than I want, and I actually need to be concerned about what I potentially lose. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I've definitely got some interesting... it's Byzantine? That really complicates things then. The Pope is upset with our law of free investiture. The Holy Father is asking us to change to comply with church doctrine. I rule in my realm. Yeah, curiously, the 1,700 troops really wasn't enough to extend this conflict. And I believe, yeah, it is the Abbasid Empire that they're up against, so that's 115,000 angry infidels. Infidels to me, obviously, that's the... Man, dude's got 4 wives. Yeah, that's 115,000 angry Muslims. I mean, high decadence. I suppose that's a bonus, but... I'm definitely going to need to put some thought in how I hand... If those curved swords start showing up on my doorstep, I'm going to need to work out a strategy. The abbot of a nearby monastery has asked you to make a donation towards the repairs of monastery church. Surely it wouldn't hurt to ensure that you are in the monk's prayers. God will know that I support the church. Lose 30 gold in exchange for 30 piety. Again, I never mind spending money on that, because in the end, the game doesn't judge you based on wealth. It's always about prestige and piety. So if I can find ways of converting gold into prestige and piety, I'll take it. The only exception, of course, is that if I need to do something like hire mercenaries. I wouldn't be able to take a full force of 100,000 troops, but I have a feeling I would be able to cut them up with some slightly more effective troop movement. I mean, I'm currently sitting at 50,000 troops, or just a little under 50,000 troops, so I don't have a hope of winning that war by sheer numbers. But I also don't think I have to win that war by sheer numbers. The best, of course, would be if I could get a Abbasid Golden Horde war going. And that's when I gobble up as much of Spain as I can. We're already at 93 war score. Nice. I've sort of been neglecting my plots. There's actually quite a few of my bloodline who are at risk of assassination, so we'll just quickly clean things up. I sometimes like to pause the game when I do this sort of stuff, but I'm not too... I'm not too focused on that at the moment, just because of... Like, in the end, there's not... I guess there's not really quite enough support for most of these. I mean, this one I can't get rid of just because, well, because this Duke's a jerk. The rest of them, you know, as far as assassinating my kinsman, they tend to be very slow-moving plots, so I can sort of afford to sit on them for a while. But seeing as I found a fairly reasonable break point, I might as well clear those out now. How are we for succession laws? Still not at the 10-year mark, so. See, one nice thing is that their focus seems to be mostly on loading troops onto ships and moving them into the territory, which is a major advantage for me, just because it means that the worst that I'm going to have to deal with something like a 10,000 troop stack. That's something that I can really easily handle on my own. What I couldn't have, like in this case, there's 25,000 going after the Teutons, but that is because they allowed them to build up on the coast. That's the whole reason why I'm trying to take the west coast of Spain. So as long as I'm able to keep a handle on how many troops are coming through on ships, I should be able to face down the Abbasid Empire. The problem, of course, is if they are able to consolidate their troops while they are taking on the Teutons, which is it is actually a possibility. So let's see what the duchies are. So why can't I take the Duchy of Beja yet? Thanks a lot for stopping by again. Yep, I thank you, and also especially thanks for studies in Crusader Kings 2. I'm definitely feeling better about Crusader Kings 2 than my studies. But after Friday, we will have next Friday, of course. We'll have a lot more content for you when you're back next time. So have a good night. All right. What's going on with this title? I can't create it. Oh, it's a 4-part one. Where's the fourth? Huh. That complicates it. See, so I could probably take it from the rebels, but if I don't take it in time for the rebellion to be crushed, then it's a waste of a CB and my troops. This is still held by the Teutons. So I think the best thing for me to do is just pass this title off to the individual holder right away, and then this will sort itself out, you know. It'll sort itself out when it sorts itself out, I guess. I'll see how this all... There we go. I should say too, I meant to write this in my title, but this will actually be a shorter stream tonight just because I do need to get on top of my studies. I think I have a pretty good idea of who to host though, so we're going to probably be wrapping up in about the next 15 minutes or so. I'm sorry I couldn't do... I normally on these kinds of streams like to do the full career of at least one ruler, but I am in a fairly exceptional circumstance, what with getting ready to graduate. So I'm almost at a point now where I could almost not care, save for the fact that every admission to grad school is actually a conditional offer. They expect you to have a certain grade point average by the end. So the last thing I want to do is blow my opportunity to go to, the top ranked econ department in Canada because I spent a couple hours too many playing Crusader Kings 2 the night before exams. So I will definitely... it is something that I need to acknowledge, is that I have definitely not been meeting my expectations in terms of being as regular or as full in the kind of content that I'd like to give you on this channel. I do need to apologize for that because I think consistency is an extremely important trait to have, especially on Twitch when there are many people with better skills than me who are able to meet that. But the best I can do at the moment is apologize for them, and I definitely can make it. I know that I will be able to make it up in the summer, and I have got a few ideas about how I'm going to make this summer a particularly good one for everyone. So I'm going to see if I can get some other people on the stream as well. So there's definitely some stuff. One thing I hate doing is talking about ideas before they are ready, because one of the things so let's imagine that I said something I was going to do this summer and everybody's like, oh, that's such a cool idea, I can't wait for it, and so on and so forth. I've kind of cheated myself out of the reward for doing it well, right? I've already heard from everybody what a great idea it is, etc., etc. And so now my incentives are all wrong, right? I've gotten the reward for having this idea, and I haven't actually done it yet. So I'm really hesitant to... And then, of course, like I said, there's also, I've noticed, even in academic stuff, I'm actually not bad at coming up with cool-sounding ideas, but the implementations don't always come off the way that the original premise turns off. So I hate being coy about this sort of stuff, but it's specifically just so I can make sure that I actually execute on the idea as well. But with that in mind, I do have a few things I want to try out this summer, and with that in mind too, I want to try and do Extra Life this year. So it'll be a good time for streaming. But I'm banking against future content by when I'm not fulfilling my duties for these couple of weeks. Oh, come on, Earth Bowser. I just said why I'm not why I shouldn't talk about ideas ahead of time. I suppose one thing I can say is, if you look in the highlights, I had a couple of professors come on the stream to talk about something that they were an expert on. While I, like I said, they were classics profs talking while I was playing Civilization. It's not the exact same thing that I plan on doing this summer, but I'd like to do something in a similar vein if I can. I still need to get people to sign off and agree to come on, but I think I've got a couple of ways of doing something in a similar spirit to that, even if I can't get an academic on board. Although with that in mind, because I've been playing so much Crusader Kings 2, I should actually maybe see if Medieval Studies has somebody who'd like to talk to the stream. So she could actually become a ruler, given the fact that I haven't had any other kids yet. So let's make sure her stewardship is high. all of these have a really crappy espionage, so let's go for this guy. Yeah, Earth Bowser. I mean, I probably shouldn't even have said, "Oh yeah, I got some great stuff coming up for you this summer," because that's almost just as bad. I mean, in some ways, that's even worse, right? Like, I tease it, I say nothing. Everybody's disappointed that they don't know what's coming up. But yeah, just the biggest thing is that even if I am really serious about my studies and I really enjoy it, Twitch is becoming a bigger and bigger part of my life, and I want to do it right. I mean, I have some of these hardware constraints, but I don't think that's a good enough excuse to not put on a good show. And I'm always trying to keep conscious about ways that I can, I guess, basically say, what's some stuff that I haven't seen on this website that I would like to see myself, and that I could pull off. So, and to answer your question, about Spymaster, I believe that one of your vassals can be discouraged from associating with conspiratorial factions if the proper leverage is obtained. How do you wish to proceed? In this case, the only option is to threaten the vassal, and I'm fairly certain that they'll just back down. Yep, I ask your forgiveness if I've done something to offend. I obviously wouldn't dream of associating with any faction conspiring against you or your enlightened rule. And tithes are always nice too. I think we're pretty much maxed out on our universities, if I recall correctly as well. That's a castle. There we go. Yeah, so that's also York's. Yeah, I'm not in the proper state for this game. So, technological limitation, almost finished. Technological limitation, tech. Yeah, so the only reason why we don't have better universities are simply because they don't have the technology for them yet. Great, okay, so we've converted one of the Muslim counties. We'll go to the next one. It's actually really impressive. So this used to be held quite tightly by the Muslims, but I'm actually quite impressed by the fact that it's been converted to Catholicism so quickly. I always get wrecked by heresy. You always get threatened vassal or remind them of obligation, and it seems like you just make them mad half the time. Well, I mean, it's definitely not an assurance. I quite frequently will get more than one option. One mechanic I'm not that well versed on in the game. I'll actually just I'll pause to show what I'm talking about. So if I go to my plot screen and I say, it's like, okay, I really don't like the fact that Duke Cuthrad is plotting against me. Okay, I can't end the plot, so let's just try and imprison. So if you try to imprison him, we have a 31% chance of success based on our relative state intrigue. Now, I don't know how this state intrigue stat works, but I have a suspicion is that this is somewhat related to to what happens when the spymaster is threatening or obligating a vassal. So I suspect there is, well, I mean, no matter what, there's very likely something going on behind the scenes to determine how successful these efforts are. Generally, my spymasters have been quite good at what they do. So I can't quite explain why I've had a certain level of success compared to yours, but my suspicion is that it probably lies and that mysterious state intrigue stat. And we'll just kill a few more plots. I'm not going to do the... I'm not going to imprison this guy because, one, even if they fabricate a claim on Portugal, they're not actually going to be able to pull... They're not going to be able to pull it off. This guy is 58, so he's probably going to die relatively soon. And even if he does bring people on side, I have a bigger army than him. There's a side of me that kind of wants to try to beef up my retinue if I can, but it might be an idea to just keep on some gold. Let's see what it would cost. Window shopping for rulers. Oh, I've already spent everything, so. Invited a monkey trainer to the summer fair, and the performance went well until one of the monkeys refused to ride on the top of a pig. The trainer beat the monkey with a stick, which led the other monkeys to attack the trainer, biting him and hitting him with his own stick. Serves him right. I think if they have the just trait, they will back down if you remind them of their obligation. If they have Craven, then threatening always works. Oh, that's a really good point, actually. I think that's a much more credible story. I wind up using my Spy Master a lot, so I'll actually start noting what kind of traits the guy has. I definitely know for blackmailing if they're homosexual or drunk. Or sorry, blackmailing comes up if they're homosexual or drunk. So there's definitely evidence of a relationship between the traits. But you actually make a good point in terms of matching the action that you take to their to the trait that they have. So I'll actually make a note of this stuff before I hit those, before I use the option. A book without a title was pushed into my hands by a hooded man clad in midnight blue. Something was said, but lost in the confusion. The book was still there. It wants me to read it. The church has just gotten some very beautiful stained glass windows, and as I and Octrata contemplated the windows, the priest approached us and asked what we thought about them. I had thought about the symbolism of the windows, while Octrata just repeated what I said. Again, I never actually really see a benefit to negative relationship with people, so I always opt for something like a bit flattering, really. And who do I need to replace? Ah, my Chancellor. Go back to fabricating claims. And looks like we still need to worry about lower authority in England. Yeah, it's Essex I need to deal with, right? Yeah. So as far as traits, he's well, he'd have to be crazy to go against me. So he's lunatic, has the Great Pox, and is craven. Yeah, so I can see a number of things that would break his attachment to this group. This is obviously a mistake for me to keep with this have a son ambition. I've been wasting a lot of time. I think I'll just go for improved stewardship and hope I get a kid. That is a male kid. Let's let this run a couple more rounds and then we'll call it a night. Again, it's not the most... what I'll do is I'll take it to the end of the summer fair. I do have somebody who will host, so if you guys want to stick around for a little bit, I'll make sure that we have a fun stream to move on to. But I definitely need to get some stats. By the way, I don't know... I know I talk a lot about school. I always have this hard time. Like, I really enjoy what I study and I like talking about it, but I have noticed I have a bad habit of either talking down too much or talking above. I never quite seem to hit that sweet spot of speaking at exactly the terms that somebody wants. So if anybody does have a background on this, the first midterm I have is econometrics, which is very stats heavy. So if any of you have a background in that, one, please tutor me for the next couple of days. But two, we can talk about that on a Monday night stream or something along those lines. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. The econometric side to me, this will maybe be the one thing I'll close out on a non-gaming related note. So one thing that really interests me is that somebody who stops by this stream every once in a while and definitely hung out with me when I did the 24-hour stream for Extra Life was one of my classmates, Sophie. Now, I have a tremendous respect for Sophie. She got an award for best thesis when she graduated. Very talented student, a lot more disciplined than me, and just a very good mind for working with this. But what interests me the most is we have two very different perspectives on the study of this subject. Yeah, I agree, Earth Bowser. I was really hesitant to remove that myself, but I mean, I've had this thing up for almost 6 years and it hasn't resulted in any kids. The one kid I did have didn't actually come from that bonus. So in this case, I sort of figure, well, I have at least one kid that can inherit the kingdom as long as I get my succession laws in order. And I think it's more likely that I'll have my succession laws taken care of rather than a kid being born. I mean, in the end, too, like when my wife goes past a state of being able to bear children, I'll either, I'll probably just kill her and just take a younger wife who isn't homosexual. But yeah, in terms of studying, what was really interesting is she's very fond of and very good at econometrics, which in this case would be the use of statistical inference for exploring economic topics. And she particularly dislikes theory, and she says it's just unreasonable assumptions leading to unreasonable conclusions. Now, I like econometrics too, but I actually quite like theory. And I mean, the thing is that I don't agree with the point that econometrics just, deals purely with fact. You need to make some assumptions in terms of how you set up your model and you work with the data that you have. And theory isn't just pulling things out of thin air. I guess the best analogy that I can draw is, a map has an unrealistic assumption that the world is flat, right? If I want to find, just like real life, exactly, Earth Bowser. If I want to find out how to get around somewhere, the world being flat is not a very good. It's not a very realistic assumption, but it's a very useful one for me to navigate around the city. Just like taking a look at, we have a monorail where I live. So I don't have to, this map of the monorail doesn't need to accurately represent the distance between stations. It just simply needs to show where the stations are relative to each other. So if my, the station that's at home is 2 stops away from the station where I want to go, I just need to know the names of those 2 stations so I get off at the right one. It doesn't matter to me that that map is drawn to scale or not. So I think the reason why I like theory a little bit more than my peer is because I appreciate it for what it's trying to do, which is to shed some light on interesting topics, give us a way of examining those topics by looking at the essential features of it while removing some of the distractions. Now, in the end, good theory should have some relevance to the real world, and so in the end we should be able to do the empirical work, the econometrics, to test certain hypotheses, see whether or not our theory matches up with what's happening in practice. Some of the really interesting results are the ones where it doesn't match up, because then you go back to the drawing board and you come up with, you try and find out why it doesn't work the way that your reasoning had told you it should work. But yeah, in this case, the econometrics class that I'm taking, again, a very interesting class, but one where I sometimes, I sometimes put my attention in slightly different areas of the material than what we're going to be tested on, and so I need to be a little bit more disciplined in my studying. All right, the peddlers are loading their wares and the merchants are taking down their stalls. The jugglers, strolling players, and the other entertainers are preparing to leave. The summer fair is over for this year, and it was great while it lasted. So, let's just take a quick look. So my first priority is the Kingdom of Asturias, which I obtained on August the 2nd, 1283, which means I have 3 more years before I can change the laws, because I've sort of assumed that I'm only going to have this one ruler. I need to make sure that I bring it to Agnatic, Cognatic, Primogeniture within those 3 years. Of course, the disaster would be if this king dies in that period of time, but I think it's unlikely. I am currently building up stewardship, basically just so I can get my vassals to like me a little bit more. Again, I will maybe go back to have a son ambition once I get my stewardship up a little bit, but having a negative opinion from vassals is one of those things that's going to keep me from putting Agnatic Cognatic into place. As far as the rest of the realm is concerned, it'd be nice if I can get my Max Crown Authority in. It's a little bit of a lower priority at the moment, and between the Jihad in for Andalusia, which doesn't actually seem to be doing that much right now. They've got a couple of things, but nothing... I mean, if I look at this war score... well, 22% in front for Caliph Jabir. It's going worse for the Teutons than I thought it would. But yeah, so the Jihad is one thing that I need to keep my eye on. It's not necessarily bad that it's happening, because it looks like there are Byzantine influences as well as Aquitanian influences in this area. Basically, they're all enemies that I don't want to really go toe-to-toe with, and I think if I can strike just shortly after the Jihad is finished, I'll be able to make some fairly reasonable claims on the area. So I think when we return to Crusader Kings next week, we're going to have a pretty fun game ahead of us, and it'll be an extended one. As long as I am not too tired from, going through school and stuff like that, I actually want to have like a good, solid, long playthrough next week, because I am going to be done with school completely. Now, it's possible if my thesis defense doesn't go that well, or I'm just feeling really tired after all of this, I may not feel up for an extended cast. We'll see how I feel on the Friday, but my plan is to, as long as I have the energy for it, I want to get a good round of Crusader Kings 2 in. We'll see what we can do about the weekend, and basically beyond that point, we're just going to be doing some more streaming, more games, just overall more content, and having a better time overall for everyone. So, is my wife closely related to me? I don't believe so. She was... Well, who was she originally? Wait a minute. Oh, that's funny. Did I really marry a Rose? Oh, that's right. I wasn't controlling this character before. So yes, actually, it turns out that she is a blood relative. I didn't even notice that before. Yeah, I know exactly. I know how you're feeling on that one, Akadak. I think I'm done for the night as well. So thank you to everybody for coming out. Again, I apologize for doing a shorter stream tonight. It's, just the time of life that I'm dealing with. We will be back Friday for sure for some more streaming. I'm going to try and come up with a tentative schedule for the summer on that night. Depending on how far we get in Crusader Kings 2, we might even try to do a longer stream, which involves doing another game as well. I'm thinking Darkest Dungeon. If we don't do Darkest Dungeon on the Friday stream, we'll definitely do it on the following Monday. But overall... Oh, Endors! I'm so sorry. I'm just wrapping up for tonight. Thank you so much for stopping by, though. But yeah, if you guys don't mind hanging out for a little while, I'd love to pass you off to another great streamer. I just want to see who's online tonight. I have a pretty good idea of who I'd like to broadcast, but it won't be a Crusader Kings 2 stream, so if you're here just for Crusader Kings 2, I hope I don't disappoint you too much, but it is a good... Yes! I'm going to host W. Shand tonight. He's doing... yeah, I'm really sorry, Endors. He's going to be doing Check the Deaths tonight, so this does mean he does do some giveaways during this. He gets really drunk on stream playing Resident Evil. I have a lot of fun watching W. Shen. I got to see him on Monday during the EXP thing. So, just a recap of the stream. Almost certainly not going to be a broadcast Monday. I'm going to be back for Friday for Crusader Kings 2 for sure. And then basically on Friday, I will give a more concrete idea in terms of my schedule, but I'm going to try and do at least one weekend stream back onto the Monday stream for sure. And I'll maybe try and make like Wednesday and Friday for sure for the rest of the summer. But in the end, I actually might try and do, one stream a day and then maybe like a one day weekend or even like a 2-day weekend, but sometime in the middle of the week. But we'll definitely do some more. Oh man, GTA 5 for PC? I'm totally keeping that on in the background while I study. All right, thanks a lot for stopping by, guys. Earth Bowser, thanks for saying that you're going to stop by again. I really appreciate you coming in and keeping me company during the stream. Endors, I am extremely sorry to cut this short for you tonight. We will be doing some more streaming for you in the future with more diversity. And to the rest of you, have a great night, and I hope you guys enjoy W. Shand. Have a good one.